Report to the cloud. All right, so today is the 29th. Here we are. And let me see. Okay, so now it's official, so I can say that. But the news that we have for this group is Vanessa Anceloni, who is the head of the Kardec Radio. She invited us to be part of Kardec Radio. So basically what's going to happen is, because of the time, I don't want to move. Why is moving to? I don't want to move or change the day and the time that we meet. Then I'm just gonna hold here. Then what's gonna happen is our meetings will be broadcasted, I guess, on a different time, and on Kardec Radio. So it's moving, but I'm not asking to move, and it's moving anyway. So I guess the request or an advice for us is just, let's behave, because now it's becoming more and more official. So just
let me see if Anna, let me see if I understand this. You're recording the meeting, and then it's the soundtrack of the meeting is going to be broadcast on Kardec Radio. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Why is moving?
Because you keep hitting buttons, that's why.
Anna.
So I'll be shut up all the time. I won't speak anymore.
So yeah, so like I said, now it's becoming more and more official. So, but the good thing is, I was thinking to myself, we let's do our best, because we never know who is gonna listen to us, and who is gonna get some hope from us. So I think it's very nice, good news for us. Anyway, so let me move, because this thing is moving by itself for some reason. So last time we stopped here 6:51. So let me move to the book. Something that I would like to call attention. We didn't mention that, but here we are. Reading, we passed the divine or natural law, chapter 1, and now we are chapter 2, law of worship. So I didn't call the attention to this fact, but anyway, so this is the first law of worship, and then we have several others. So 651, are there nations or groups of people entirely devoid of any sense of worship? And they answer no, because there never was a country or ethnic group solely comprised of atheists. Everyone feels that there is a supreme intelligence above them. So, and the next is 652. Can we regard worship as being rooted in natural law? Any comment before we move on to the answer? Can we regard worship as being rooted in natural law?
I'm laughing because this is how the priesthood in the various religions got started. If you give me money, I'll pray for you. Or give me your latest hunter kill. Sorry, Hyacinth.
No, some people, not all, and that's not how they got started. I will object very strongly to that, Charles. There are some, without a doubt.
Una's got a remark too. Let's have it.
What do they mean by natural law?
Good question.
A way of being. Natural law is a way of being.
Yeah, just the how can I say, I forgot the word even in Portuguese.
And natural law's not the result of culture, right? Of
No.
human
Right.
reasoning and culture. It's something that comes from the inside instinctively, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's the word that I was
A way,
looking
a
for.
way of being
Instinct.
is, yes, it's
Yeah.
instinct, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Leda
like-
has got a beautiful
Uh,
companion snuggling beside her.
Thank you, child.
Her daughter. Yeah, by the way, I think this is very something that I believe very much, that people have this kind of, even atheists, right? Because I remember that there are some atheists that they have organizations, they stand up for their idea. This is a belief. Sometimes atheism is also a belief, you know,
Mm.
and they worship their non-God something, right?
So like would
Yeah.
Druid religion and those really ancient religions, like, do they come under the remit of natural law, do you reckon? Like Druidic practices
yes, that's-
from
Yeah.
Labour.
Yeah.
Yes.
But by the way,
Yes,
Una, do you know
I
that
think
Allan Kardec is the name of a Druid priest?
No, I
Yes.
didn't.
Yes.
Yeah, he was. The spirit said that in previous lives, a while before, he had been a Druid priest. That's why, and his name was Kardec, because his real name, the last reincarnation, was Hippolyte. He was French guy.
He was a French
Uh-huh.
guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Hippolyte
Wow.
Revile.
That's really interesting.
And then Spiritism has a lot to do with the Druid teachings too.
Mhm,
Yep.
mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay.
Well,
So
I think that it is rooted in natural law, because everybody, as much as they don't want to say they do, they all seem to congregate behind some kind of religion. I mean, I'm thinking of the politicians in this country right now. They're crazy, but they treat that like a religion, or not just, I guess, a worship, just where they have to follow something that they feel is bigger than themselves.
yeah, and that god's got a name. It's called Mammon.
Yeah.
Hyacinth.
Give us the
well-
Christianist point of view.
No, I just wondered about that, because there are people now, I mean, for example, I can't imagine that some of our leaders think that we are the most intelligent beings in the universe, and we can weaponize space and we can control it. So I don't know whom they could think as a higher being than themselves. I don't know. It's just a thought that just came.
That's a very good thought, Hyacinth, because these current batch of leaders, well, let's say all of them throughout history, act as though there is never any reckoning.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a very short-term, short-sighted belief. And we better not go on with this, because otherwise we'll talk about politics, and we're supposed to be talking about
Yes,
Yeah.
external acts of adoration.
yes.
Yes.
The other thing, can I just say to Giles, that we have these beautiful, beautiful churches all over the place, built by rich people, kings and dukes and all these sorts of people, who thought that by doing this, they would go to heaven.
Yeah, especially
So-
since they never lifted a brick.
Well, exactly. So, but they did leave beautiful monuments that I enjoy.
Ah, you mean that some of these people actually thought there might be a reckoning?
No, that's what the church taught them.
Yes,
Mhm.
indeed.
Yes.
So
All
that
right.
they-
The
yeah, so
church,
that this-
the
this is what
church.
I mean,
Okay, let's
yes.
move away from the
Yes.
church, because that is a very dangerous subject.
No, we're talking about worship, Giles.
Well, you're talking about it
All
from
right.
the Christian point of view, and I will
But that's
talk, I
one.
will
No, that's
mention,
one.
I
No,
will
that's one
mention
word.
that the early worship was to the Great Spirit. until people figured out ways to put an effigy to the Great Spirit and collect money for doing so.
So, okay,
Okay,
so we
sorry,
have
Anna, go on.
Maria. Maria, go ahead. You're on mute.
Yes, I think that the natural law of God is writing in the conscience of every human being.
Mhm.
Each one knows what to do according to it in natural way. I think that this law is programmed to bring
Programmed.
us closer to the source of our creation. Many times we have chances to understand the way you need to be a better person, to be a fraternal person. And I think that is so natural. And when you try to understand this law, you are next a little to God.
Closer to
Close.
God.
Yes.
Closer to God. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah. It is like something imprinting our consciousness, and it's just natural for us to follow. And somehow unconsciously, sometimes we know what is nice and what is not so nice to do, because those laws, they are somewhere in our consciousness. Hyacinth, you have.
Yes. I know, what was I going to say? It's gone.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, Paul. When Paul was in Ephesus, remember, he saw these statues, and then there was one, said, to the unknown God.
Mhm.
So clearly that was a spirit being that they were worshiping.
Worship.
So he says, I can tell you who that God is. So, so clearly this must be inherent in everybody.
Yeah. And that's exactly what the answer is. Una.
Yeah, going back to Druids, they had a wheel of the year and had ceremonies all the way through the year, which marked not only different phases of, like, in the constellation and stuff, but also different periods, different light and different important things in the season or within the seasons of the year and things like that. So they had an awareness of something that was bigger than themselves, and they marked it all the way through with
Mhm.
various different ceremonies and things like that. So for me, that shows like an idea or a consciousness going back like thousands of years, that there was something more than just
Yeah.
what we are, the physical. And long before, gold and silver or churches or anything like that came into it, there was still an awareness then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, there are some messages from the spirits, and they say exactly that. Some of them, they come over here to Earth, and but actually they migrated from evolved worlds. They migrated to Earth as part of their development, and evidently they were not able to continue with the level of consciousness that they had at that time. They were not able to continue with along with the humanity they had in their worlds. So they were forced or invited to relocate to a less developed world, mean Earth. And this is going to happen pretty soon, or is already happening over here. Some of us will not continue, and then it's like a cycle, right? So so some spirits, they say, or some messages, and sometimes even I think yeah, there are some other books, not from Kardec, but some of them they mention. That's why sometimes we see those drawings and yeah, so paintings in caverns showing something about, you know, that those folks from prehistoric times, they were looking at the skies and they were missing something. They didn't know exactly what, but that's something in their memory or in their mind, back in their mind, saying, yeah, we came from there. They just didn't know how. Debbie?
Oh, I just was noticing Una, and immediately I thought about the Egyptians worshiping their cats. Just had to mention that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he likes to join the sessions. I hope he's going to be famous, Anna, when we go on Kardec Radio.
Yes.
And Merlin was a very famous druid.
Yeah, maybe that's why he's here.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he's listening too. My dad sometimes does too, you know. I hope he will learn something from it. Luis or Livia, one of you guys.
Well, I'd like to highlight something that interestingly in practical spiritism in Brazil, my country. I'm talking about thousands of them. You won't find anything that is related to worshiping things, like no amulets, no signs, no images. And why is that? Because the idea Kardec had is that, and many spiritists don't know this, right? Because, you know, people don't often study the spiritist doctrine as we are doing here now. They just go to a spiritist center. But the spiritist center doesn't have this kind of thing, is because the idea is Allan Kardec wanted everybody from any kind of religion, and even atheists, to come over and study the science of spiritism. So if you establish a specific code, a specific sign or image or something relating to anything, you can, you know, chase people away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I'm proud to say that around my table there are Jews, Brahminists,
Yes.
Catholics, and Protestants. That's why he didn't want any kind of worshiping. But he says in the Spiritist book, we're going to see this. But at home, right, when you are together in your inner ambience, you can worship the way you like. Doesn't
Yes.
matter. Yes. The only thing is, when we are together, let's, you know, refrain the way we use for worshiping, because we can, you know, kind of offend or
Yeah, we
be a
want
little
to be
bit,
inclusive, right?
yes, because that's in this. Yes.
Yeah.
And there is also a danger that if you use an object to worship God, that you need this object to worship God, and you don't, right? You have to try to be as free as possible to worship God in spirit, and not in a temple, or using a candle, or using any kind of material or an image or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the message. Thank you all. So, Leda, would you please read the answer for us?
Okay, it's included in natural law since it's the result of an intrinsic sense in human beings. This is why it's found across all nations and ethnic groups in different forms.
Any comment on that? I think it's very,
Yeah, that's what we have been saying, right? The worship is in all nations, all countries, all groups, in Indians, in the ancients, the Druids, like Hyacinth said, and everybody has this sense that there is a God, that there is something higher than us.
Yeah, something up there. We do not know exactly where, but there is something up there.
Yes, that controls the laws in the universe, right?
Yes. Luis.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
was
Thank you.
thinking that if we avoid this natural law inside us, then we worship things that it's not like God or something that's it's really valuable as we think. And we idolatrate someone or something that's not so natural, so inside us. I think because it's inside us, we have this instinct to
follow something, right? And
yeah,
sometimes we just choose the wrong target, you know, the wrong
yeah,
We mythify the wrong
leader.
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you all. So, okay, so this is the last one for purpose of worship. Now, external worship. And the first question is, are external displays necessary for worship? Okay, so this is exactly what Leda was talking about and Leda was talking about. Are external displays necessary for worship? I think.
For me, it is. I mean, as for example, singing hymns that are specifically meaningful and touch me, it's one thing. Sometimes just the whole ambience, the whole feeling. I don't have to be in church, I can be anywhere. And you're just overcome by this presence, this awe, this beautiful sunshine, just looking up at the stars as I did as a child, and I was just completely taken. And so it is. These beautiful, beautiful symphonies. I mean, listening to music, so that there is something that I
helps.
Think, yes.
Yeah, it's like a conductor that kind of helps you to get to that state of mind, right? You feel connected. Yeah, I'm with you. The other day I saw that in my dog, you know, because the way that she was behaving, she was almost like she was thinking about the next thing that she'd say to me. And then I realized that she's kind of evolving. And the way that she's doing that is because of the love that she gets from us. And then I realized, yeah, we really evolve, we really grow up because of love. That's how she will one day, you know, evolve to something, you know, more complex. And then I realized that's God acting, you know, through love. Maria, you raise your hand.
Yes. For a long time in our spiritual childhood, thousands of years ago, humanity needed an outward form for workmanship in order to believe in its relationships with God. As we evolve, leaving the first spiritual childhood and moving towards the second, we need to feel our relationship with God. And this feeling can only be perceived within us. Perceived, that's right?
Perceived within us.
Within us. On a regenerated planet, we need to develop noble, legitimate, and true feelings in all our relationships.
Yeah, yeah, yes, I agree. Yeah, it's in other words, let's not look for God outside of anything else but in our own hearts, right?
All right.
Stay connected with it. So Luis, would you please read the answer for us?
Hi, Sinus wants to speak.
Oh, hi, Cynthia, you want to say? I thought should just. Okay.
Okay. So the question is, are external displays of worship beneficial or constructive? Oh, no, it's 653.
No.
Yeah.
Our external
Yes.
displays.
External displays necessary for worship. True worship exists in the heart. Remember that God's eyes are always watching you. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's very straightforward. Nothing else to say.
I think there's plenty to say about that. The master's eye is always upon you. Yes. No, there's such a thing as the law of karma. That's always watching what's going on. But to say that the Lord is watching all of the actions, what about the Holocaust? It seemed like God went to sleep for 5 years. And then the Soviet gulags, he went to sleep for another 20 years. So this idea of the eye of God is always, the eye in the sky is always watching you. I have to say that's a crock of nonsense. All right, Hyacinth, you're going to tell me that Jesus is already watching, is watching everything. Well, I wouldn't give him such a job to do. All right, your turn, Hyacinth.
You're talking in human terms, Charles. God, the Spirit, is above this.
Absolutely.
And what we do, you have free will. He says, my child, no, but you don't listen, you do it. And that is what it is, and this is what, and we pay for what we do.
Okay,
And
now it's Luis's
in
turn.
the end, we pay. But he is not sleeping, and he's not doing that. This is not the way it is.
And for you, he's a he, is he?
We talk about him as he, but okay, a lot of people now saying mother, father.
Yeah.
How about it, since sex is a temporary status?
No, I don't believe in it. It is a neuter. And so this
okay, what sex are angels?
Well, according to the angels, they are hermaphrodite. There is no
exactly
sex.
No sex.
Exactly.
And if God is above them, in charge of them, then okay.
That's what I said last time. Human beings have put a penis on God and made him into a human being.
Okay, now it's Luis's turn.
Okay, no, I'll finish what I have to say. And so this is a whole point, that we are putting always God in human terms, and he is above that. He is spirit, not human. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Luis?
Yes, interesting to highlight again is that the laws like karma, the law of cause and effect, are the strings that unite God to humanity, you know, because laws, God's laws are exactly the way God manifests itself, or himself or herself, the way you like it, yes, to humans. So remember, when you speak about God here, we're talking about the supreme intelligence, the primary cause of all things, right? And so it's good to bear this in mind, you know, the supreme intelligence, the primary cause of all things, all powerful, right? Conscience, and so on and so forth, to avoid mistakes and misconfusion.
Yeah. Thank you, Luis. Leda.
Like Giles was saying, we are in this world submitted to the law of karma, right? The cause and effect. So sometimes the earth is not just a hospital or a school, but it's also prison where we are because we have done bad things in the past. And like in the prisons here in this planet, we have the good prisoners that behave, and we have some prisoners that are they need
Rebels.
a sort of different treatment. They are put in
Isolation.
and things like that. So I remember that Jesus said in Matthew 5:25, he said, "Settle matters quickly with your adversary who is taking you to court. Do it while you are still together on the way, or your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison." So many times I think about this that Jesus said, and sometimes we require some drastic, some tough acts from God, yeah, to wake up to who we are, to what we are doing, and I believe this very dreadful things that Giles said, like the Holocaust. These are the extreme measures that God uses to have us wake up and have us washed clean by the suffering, and in our lives we have this too. Sometimes we need to go to extreme suffering to learn and to wake up. But he always, before that, he always gives us so many chances not to go through that. But sometimes we don't want to hear him. We don't want to see. We don't want to understand what he has to say to us.
Yeah, it is in fact a wake-up call, because we are the ones creating our reality. We are the ones creating our own problems, and we are the ones seeking the resolution for the problems we created. So when I read something like this, God's eyes are always watching you, is because I believe of the way that I interpret this, I am part of God, or God is inside me. And there is no way, once I go to the spiritual realm, there is no way I will not have to face my bads, the wrongdoings. So I will have to face the consequences. I'll have to create my own path towards, the right, how can I say, the right
Direction.
direction. Thank you. Yeah, the right direction again. So I'll be the one creating my own resolution, solving the problems I created. I'll be the one facing the consequences of what I've done.
But he's always there to help us get out of the trouble that we created, right? He's always one step from us. So if we try to get his hand, if we pray, if we try, he'll reach us.
Mhm.
I am saying he, but it's not a he. Right?
Yeah,
God.
yes. Yeah, it's just a lack of right or correct denomination. All right, thank you all. So then this question has an item A. Are external displays of worship beneficial or constructive? Are external displays of worship beneficial or constructive?
Can I answer that?
Yes, please.
It goes very much hand in hand with the human weakness of pride. When you clearly have made no effort to control your pride, you want to look good under all circumstances. We have to make sure that hair is in place and our clothes look good. And so external adoration is built in for other people to look at. And that's why, of course, when Christians go to church on Sunday, they always wear their best. And their excuse is, oh, I'm doing this because God is watching. But in fact, it's for the rest of the audience. Oh, there we go, Hyacinth. Oh, it didn't take you long to respond to that one. So external acts of worship being useful, well, it all depends. One size does not fit all, as I mentioned before. All right, come on, Hyacinth.
Yes.
Oh,
Shoot me
because
down
you see,
with
just-
Christianity.
No, I'm laughing, you see, because people wear short shorts and cut off shorts and all sorts of things to church these days. You don't get them hat and gloves as I used to as a young woman.
Well,
Doesn't work anymore.
you're living in Austria, which is about 50 years in advance of the Americas I live in, and
yes,
the
okay.
place I'm living in is the South, which is where where that conservative political party exists.
Okay.
So there's nothing changed here for the last 70 or 80 years, including the racism.
come on, be optimistic. Debbie.
Oh, yes, I am optimistic. It's changing because all the children are mixed up in school and they know perfectly well people of different races can be smarter than them, better than them, or nastier than them. It depends what you've got. So the racism has got no look in. But now, right now, they're all 12 and 13. We have to wait until they're 35 and starting to get into political power. So yes, I am patient about this because there's a long way to go.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we'll get there. Debbie, sorry.
I just thought of in the Bible where Jesus said, he mentions the people that do everything for show and that it's better to go and pray in your closet. I think he says something like that. So
Yep.
I immediately thought of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, yes, that's exactly right. Yeah.
No brownie points.
Una.
In terms of the putting on a show bit, the dominant religion in the country that I grew up with has, had that down to a T. But behind it, there's a very dark history of living anything but what it says, or what that church preached, or what that religion preached. I mean, this was a religion that locked people up and did horrific things and things like that in this country, the country that I live in. So external displays of worship, in terms of what I've experienced and what I've grown up with, I don't really trust in the society that I've grown up with. But if you go back a long way, then the external displays of worship and coming together for a common cause and things like that, like, and I'm just gonna take the analogy of maybe Stonehenge. There was a function in that society for it, and it obviously played a very important part in society, as it did in the society that I grew up in. But it did what I grew up in didn't match the words, didn't match what it preached. It was all for show.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I see your point. Yeah. The exercise that I try to do when I see that, and sometimes I am in the same position as you are. I try to think about what Hyacinth just said. Not everybody from that organization or from that institution will or behaves that in the same way you know, it's part of the human nature, you know, there will be people that will deceive you, people that will, you know, just disappoint. And what I try to do, I try to separate the behavior of that person and the true reason for the existence of that organization or that institution, because behind of something, you know, like the church, when I think about the church, yeah, there has been a lot of people that done, you know, wrong, but also I think about all the other ones who did work hard, like Francis and St. Francis. And that guy, he is an idol to me. He is a model for me. So I try to separate the behavior some from the true nature of you know, some institution or organization. And it's not because I want to defend that organization, but it's for my own benefit. I don't want to hold bad feelings about something. I don't want to be judgmental because of someone did something wrong. I just, you know, want to stick with the positive of, you know, things that someone did in the past and it was really good. Like, you know, Francis and Paul. Sometimes Hyacinth is mentioning Paul a lot, and I really like him. Maria.
We have a Brazilian author, Samuel Gomes, who says that prayer can be said when you come back to your home tired, go to take a shower and give a sigh of satisfaction. Very happy with the opportunity to clean yourself. The price is present when we recognize every simple and good thing that we enjoy. Unfortunately, we don't pay attention of them. We lost many moments to prayer.
Yep. Thank you, Maria. Giles.
Yes, indeed. Did anybody ever see that long BBC series where Christopher Hitchens was in there? Christopher Hitchens, now this was quite widely dispersed. It was a BBC conversation with a big audience, and it went on for a couple of weeks. I mean, that is the actual meetings. And they had a panel from the Vatican. And they had a panel from, let's say, lay persons, among them Christopher Hitchens is the most remarkable man. And the discussion was, the title of the discussion was the church a good thing or not? I don't know if that was the real title or not, but it was certainly what the discussion was about. Now, Hyacinth, before you jump in, the discussion ranged over a number of subjects, and the people that were having the conversation were very knowledgeable about what the church had done, including the bishops that sat there in their fat robes watching this conversation. And they were torn to shreds by the lay persons about what the Christian Catholic Church had done in the last 2,000 years. Okay, Luis, your turn.
Oh, sorry, it's me. I was thinking about one history that Chico said, one story he said one time. He saw a woman in the church. She was full of jewelry, and people was judgmental about her and saying why she's full of jewels. And he said, you don't know her, you don't know her history, of her past lives. She was much
Much
more
richer, yeah.
richer and full of jewelry. She's trying to be less full of this, and she's progressing, and she's getting more spiritual. And so you can't judge people. Maybe if they were in the church and doing that, they would be doing another thing that's not good. So we are trying to progress, and that's what we need to think every time, especially in human beings. We don't know our histories, but we need to think what is inside us when you pray, when you're what we are doing. It is important.
Very
Thank
good.
you,
And I'd
Lydia.
like to add something. The first time I got into a spiritist center, for sure, I was 13 years old, 14. And I had been reading and studying spiritism since years before. And to my surprise, spiritist centers were very different from spiritism. This was kind of shocking because when you are, a teenager, you are an idealist person. So, but it will happen forever. People is a spiritualist, and it's very interesting to hear, to listen to Giles speaking his environment and this context where he lives. Now I can understand better why, because if you are in an atmosphere where everybody is quote unquote Christian, right? And all those mistakes have been painstakingly repeated, right? And now I understand very much, right? Because I wasn't born in that kind of, my father was going to be a priest, but he passed away when I was 13, and my mother was able then to practice her mediumship after that. And, but look, many times I got into a spiritist center that, I could say that was not exactly spiritist, right? Because spiritism, this is the search for the truth, to detach us from any kind of human approach to religion or even science, So, and that's why it's combated even by spiritualists and Catholics, and many people combat spiritism. Like spiritism died in Europe because of spiritualists, right?
Mhm.
They didn't want spiritism to go ahead, and it's something tough, it's not easy.
Yep. Thank you, Luis.
You're
Thank you, Olivia. Leda?
I think that what Luis is saying has everything to do with this subject of external displays of worship, right? Because as my daughter now is in Canada, and it's very different from here. She's going to the church there with my sister, and it's like Giles said, you have to put on, she has to wear a dress to go to church. She can't wear pants to go to church. She needs to dress up to go to church, right? Which here in Brazil, we don't do at all. Not only in the spirit centers, but in the Catholic Church. And it doesn't happen here. So I think what the problem is when you dress up to go to church like that, you start to think that you are closer to God just because you dressed up like that. And it gives you a false impression, a wrong idea that God is external, and it's not. It's within the person, right?
Yeah,
so
that
I like to pray, for instance, using a candle. Sometimes I used to, and it's not a problem if it helps you. But if you believe that candle is doing the job for you, then you're wrong.
that's the
you
problem.
have to do the job, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's materialism. Every time that we stick with something and we believe that little something is doing the tricky of, is connecting you to God, then that's the materialism. Then, yeah, it missed the purpose. Luis.
I'd like to explain again when I said in terms of spiritualism is because there were some magazines, spiritualist magazines, that were against some dogmas like reincarnation. We reincarnate many times on the same planet, And this was different from their spiritualist idea, right? That we reincarnate only once on each planet. So there were some differences, but Allan Kardec was not creating a doctrine. He was studying mediumistic groups all over the world. As he became a famous researcher, people from all over the world wrote to him and talked to him about the revelations they were receiving, right? And then he said, okay, guys, I'm just putting out what the spirits have been communicating all over the world. I'm not against spiritualism, but a guy that was a spiritualist after Allan Kardec's death, he took hold of this situation, and he even, he damaged the thing because he was even in prison. He was a fraud, right? And there was because of that, after that, spiritism in Europe was kind of decaying, right? And it was a serious thing, right? That's it. Just to explain exactly what I meant when I said that.
Thank you, Luis. Hi, Saint.
Yes, I want to say that Christopher Hitchens I like very much, and he exposed a lot, because there is a lot of awful things in churches, bishops no less. So absolutely, and there's a lot of hypocrisy as well. There's no doubt about that. But I stay with it because this is not the bishops that I worship. And I like the community where I gather, and we have it's a gathering, and it's something that you can feel connected to, so that it's and you worship together and so forth. And I guess it's just different for different people and different groups. Some people like that and others don't. So, but definitely to expose the hypocrisy is absolutely vital. And I like to talk to my bishops about these things. And I use my excuse, Giles, is my great age gives me the right to say what I feel and what I know.
Respect my gray hair, right?
Hyacinth, you're a grandmother, and as you've heard me say before, the way to fix the planet is to make all elective posts only open to grandmothers. They have to show pictures of their grandchildren, because they do not have careers, and therefore their corruption will be very small.
No.
What?
Grannies can be just as corrupt as anybody else.
Yes, of course they can be, but the reality is that they won't be. We had some examples of 2-century rule in the country that used to be Liberia, in West Africa, West Africa. And they stayed away from wars for all that time, ruled by women, and mainly grandmothers. Anyway, it's supposed to be tongue-in-cheek, since it's never going to happen. Can you see these fat white racists ever allowing grandmothers to rule? They know they'd all be hung out to dry, and the corruption would stop. So of course they won't allow it.
Actually, in matriarchal societies, there is far less war than normal. Women tend to work things out rather than going to war.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Thank you. Hi,
something else I want to mention, which is worth reminding everybody of, because we always forget it when we're making statements about humanity and how they behave. And that is that there are, to my best understanding, 50,000 lifetimes and of any individual spirit to fill the human experience. So if it's the first 100 times around, or the first 1,000 times around for any individual, don't expect anything sensible out of that individual any more than you would expect it out of an orangutan. Now, later on in the last 1,000 lives, that's where we start getting realized masters. And where are we generally? Well, we've all got to be somewhere near the middle, otherwise we wouldn't sit still for a meeting like this. Luis, I'm sure you've got a remark on that.
Well, it's difficult to know about this 50,000 reincarnations. I have no idea about that, but it's, of course, it's logical, right? When we are at the beginning of our journey as spirits, we are simple, ignorant, you know, and we cannot, the higher spirits won't be able to expect too much from us, right? And that's what Allan Kardec says, something that I've concluded logically, is that the older the spirit is, the more painful reincarnation is for him or for her, because there are some very serious side effects in reincarnation, you know, because you're going to go through lots of anguish, lots of situations that you could have been free from or gotten rid from that. But as you need the reincarnation to, you know, for atonement and for learning, for repeating experiences that you were not successful, you need to reincarnate. But sometimes it's just like a person who is in the elementary school, but at the age of 18, it's painful, right?
Yep.
That's it.
Luis, would you please read the answer for us?
Okay. Yes. So the question is, are external displays of worship beneficial or constructive? Yes, if they're not merely done for show. Setting a good example is always important. People who perform acts of worship merely for the sake of appearances and whose behavior contradicts their superficial piety set a bad example and do more harm than they know or imagine. Amen.
Thank you.
It's all set here.
Yeah, all set. All right, so 654, does God prefer any specific type of worship? That's a tricky one. What do we think?
I should think only if it comes from the heart. He doesn't want long words and all sorts of things. Just talk to me from your heart.
Let me show you what I have. I do not know if you all can see, but I have this. It's a little triangle. This. And I use this because as an engineer, I know that there is no other shape stronger than a triangle. There is no other shape stronger than a triangle. If you look at anything else, a bridge, a building, anything, you will see triangle, you know, balancing the force of nature, the force of gravity. And, but the way that I do is because the triangle represents to me love, faith, and charity. But that triangle, so to me, this is something that connects me to God, but it's not that, you know, I believe, you know, because of the triangle or I believe the geometry is something coming from the God. No, it's just something that reminds me and connects me to God. Giles.
Yes, indeed. There's you're a dark horse. You're keeping things from us. You're an engineer, a real engineer. This is scary news. out of a university with a degree, a master's in engineering, or it would be a PhD level. All right. Well, that's very nice to hear, and it makes your statements much more, I guess, more important, because if you know all the science behind engineering and you have decided to be an engineer who has found spirit, this is quite something. as I keep reminding Bill Rain, and that's why I'm going on about it, because this is the first time I hear of it. And there's something else I wanted to mention, which is this wearing of a cross. Now, I found a picture depicting Jesus on the Lake of Galilee, and he was wearing a cross around his neck. So somebody, somebody had their history mixed up here. And if we have to talk of as though Jesus had any humanity, what is the last thing he wants to see when he comes back to earth? A cross. Why? Well, let's wear a machine gun instead. That would make just about as much sense. Sorry, I sometimes get carried away with this. Hyacinth, you're going to tell me that JC likes the idea of a cross?
I won't bother to answer that, because that is really, I would only say that whoever had painted that picture had no understanding at all.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So does anybody want to comment anything before we read the answer? It's a long one.
I don't think that God wants any or demands any specific form of worship other than for us at some level to recognize and realize that we have some spark of the divine within us. So if you accept that about yourself, then you have to accept that about everybody else that you come in contact with. And I think probably that, you know, you only have to look back through history to know that we don't do that. And that's probably what God is holding out for, or that's possibly something that God is holding out for.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that thought, Una. Yeah. I agree with you. Anybody else?
That's what the Samaritan girl, woman, asked Jesus if God prefers to be worshipped in the temple or in the woods, right? And he answered that God is a spirit, and so he likes to be worshipped in spirit and truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a very carefully worded answer. He likes to be worshipped in the spirit of truth. Yes, indeed. Well, that can happen in churches, I suppose, temples, but it's more likely to work outside in the woods, as you have suggested here. And that's what my understanding of spiritually advanced people, when they go for a walk in the woods or a walk outside anywhere, that's when they're in contact with their higher spirit.
Thank you, Giles.
Worship in spirit. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Hyacinth. You can.
God, worship him in spirit and in truth. And actually, one of my daughters who does coaching for people who have to make the presentations in English, she talks about God. She's not a church goer, but she's very sensitive. Anyway, they had not experienced God. They couldn't think of God. And so she said, have you been on a beach just walking and seen a sunrise or a sunset, and you are just completely overcome by the beauty? Or you've been in nature and just felt one with nature? And they said, yes. And she says, well, that's God. That's God? Yes, that's God.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you,
Yes,
Hyacinth.
I saw the question of Debbie's questions about the cross and that Christians used to have in the neck. And I was thinking maybe that's the same that we're talking about. Depends what is inside you, what it's your intention to have the cross. There's a book by Chico Xavier, Renunciation, where he says that a great spirit from the high, he calls her as an angel reincarnated. She used to have a cross to pray, and just to remind her what Jesus suffered here. And sometimes high spirits or good people suffer in this world because sometimes they are trying to do good things or to help people, because we are in a very inferior planet. And they say that. And she wanted to remember what Jesus suffered and maybe what she would suffer because she was a very high spirit. And that's what was her intention. And that's what matters, not what we are just using as we are all talking. But I think maybe some Christians just want to remember what was the cross in this world, but maybe they just want to wear something beautiful or something that
Just to show, just like
yeah,
this.
just to show,
show.
or just to be dogmatic and to say I'm Christian, you are not. That's not a good purpose for that I think. But sometimes not. Sometimes that's what matters.
I remember, historically speaking, some Christians used to do the sign of the cross, right?
Yeah.
When they were in the underground meetings, to not be identified by the Romans,
Oh, yeah.
right? In all Roman authorities. So this was a kind of secret sign for them to distinguish, right? Who was a real Christian or not. But of course, times change things. Society changes everything, and not all is right for the better. Yeah. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Luis. Luis, would you please read the answer since you were the last one?
Okay. Is it God? Is it the one?
Yeah,
God prefers people who sincerely worship from the heart by doing good and avoiding wrongdoing, over those who follow elaborate rituals or ceremonies but are not truly better than their neighbors. All human beings are brothers and sisters and also God's children. God calls out to everyone who follows divine or natural laws, no matter how they show their difference and respect. People who are only superficially pious are hypocrites. When their worship is only a sham and contradicts their behavior, they set a bad example. Those who claim to worship Christ yet are proud, spiteful, jealous, cruel, and unforgiving of others, ambitious for material goods, I declare to you that they have religion for outward appearances only and not in their hearts. God, who sees everything, will say, those who know the truth and do not follow it is 100-fold more guilty in the evil they do than the ignorant savage, and will be treated accordingly on Judgment Day. You can excuse a blind man if he runs into you as he passes by. If the same thing is done by a man who can see you, you complain with good reason. Do not ask if any specific form of worship is more acceptable than other, because that is akin to asking if God prefers to be worshipped in one language over another. Remember that the hymns addressed to God can only reach their targets through the heart. Again, yeah.
Very nice. Comments before we close for the day?
The heart is where it is what it's all about.
It is the door. It is the passageway. Yeah.
Let me mention something about the heart, which we would need an MD to confirm, but we don't have any around, I think. The heart has a great deal more electricity running through it than the brain. If you just take a measure of, get an ammeter
Mhm.
And you're an engineer, Anna, so you know that this is an interesting concept. More electricity in the heart than in the brain. So humans, of course, spend a lot of time talking about matters of the heart. And not so well, they talk about things in the brain also, but there we go. It's just worth mentioning.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Anything else? Any other comment, folks?
Come on,
No?
Annie, you're in Calgary. It's freezing up there. It's time for you to say something.
She's freezing.
Actually, the weather has been great for a couple of weeks. We've been on the plus side, so I can't complain. The person that made the comment about people dressing up in Canada to go to church, whoever's daughter it is, I just because I'm Canadian, I'll just say they're probably dressed up because they need to wear more clothes because it is colder here. But we're also, I think, more a conservative country than Brazil. And you will find people that would be dressing differently in public places, especially places of worship. And I think listening to this entire meeting, how I would sum it up is, let's see, I guess how people worship, it really is not going to make a lot of difference when you leave the earth, because people put such a huge importance on, are you Mormon, Catholic, Christian, whatever, and none of it matters. It just doesn't matter. What matters is who you are and where you're at as a person. And I think it does have to do with how many times you've been reincarnated. And perhaps the people of the Holocaust had been through many, many, many reincarnations. But I just really don't think any of it matters. It's what's in your heart and who you are, and that's what matters. That's it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Annie.
Lovely,
Yeah,
Annie.
yeah. Very
Oh,
nice.
can I just, another little note to Giles. I said to my priest one day, and this was some years ago, if you ask me to do something and I say, sorry, I won't, please don't tell me I ought or I should. It's my duty, because my heart has not said to do it. And if my heart doesn't say to do it, I'm not going to do it. He didn't like that answer. But but it's what is in the heart. You can't get away from that. All the nice words mean nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
Only to other human beings, perhaps, if they don't understand that those are just nice words.
Thank you all. Thank you, Hyacinth. And
Thank you, Anna.
thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.
Let's
See
see.
you.
Good.
See you next week.
See you.
Bye.
Go ahead,
tomorrow.
and Una.
See you
week.
tomorrow. Maybe.
Yeah, see you tomorrow, Hyacinth.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Have a
bye.
good evening.
Right.